Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. I'm Meryl Fury.
And I'm Carrie Bruno. We are healthcare professionals and co-creators of this podcast. Today's episode of 6 Million Seeds is brought to you by Carrot Dogs.
Welcome to 6 Million Seeds. My name is Meryl Fury.
And my name is Carrie Bruno.
And today we have Victor Bradley and Mark Cerkvenik, great friends of ours who have graciously agreed to be on the podcast because they have lots going on and lots to share.
Yeah.
So let me start with introducing Victor. Victor has over 30 years of experience as an educator in elementary and early childhood settings. This is why we wanted this guy on the show, by the way, because there's not a lot of guys that do this for a living. He's served various communities in Boston, Massachusetts, which include 20 plus years of diversity training. His extensive experience has been with children and adults of all ages and includes guiding children, parents, teachers, and student teachers at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. He brings a deep commitment to social justice into the educational classroom setting through extensive experience with history, anti-bias, and anti-racist curriculum development and implementation from pre-K through 8th grade. He has a passion for teaching about issues of race, gender, and is actually in the position with all this hands-on knowledge and experience to be a mentor and coach to parents and to give young people a full social justice experience. He supports schools with training and consulting around race, gender, and social change. The goal of all of these offerings can help to transform a program through race, gender, and social justice work. In his spare time, he enjoys listening to all kinds of music, connecting to nature on walks on the beaches and in woodland areas, cooking delicious vegan meals. He practices the healing art of Reiki. He also loves spending time with his 11-year-old daughter, Hazel, and his partner, Sabina. So welcome, Victor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So a little bit about Mark. He was born and raised in the southwest side of Chicago and worked in healthcare for nearly 40 years. For almost 15 years, he worked in leadership roles at Loyola University Health System and Northwestern Medicine, training and coaching clinical leaders whose department saw thousands of patients dealing with chronic illnesses. He often thought there must be a better way to treat and prevent diseases besides frequent doctor visits and a lifetime of prescription drugs. In addition to his own health issues, as his parents, in-laws, and close friends suffered from acute or chronic health issues largely as a result of their food choices. Mark was a vegetarian for over 25 years, but not until he adopted a whole food plant-based diet in 2018 did he see tremendous improvement in his health and a path to maintain a healthy weight. In addition to being licensed by PCRM as a Food for Life instructor, Mark provides coaching for individuals and couples on transitioning to a sustainable plant-based diet, as well as workshops and workplace seminars on a variety of health-related topics. So welcome.
Yay.
Thank you.
Great. So great to have both of you here. So we'll jump right in with, all right, so you're both in the helping professions. I'm going to start right here. Both in the helping professions. Mark, you are working with food and coaching, and Victor, you're working with children, anti-bias, and that whole world of training. Tell us what it looks like to work with the people that you're working with. What do you see as the most frequently, the most common issues, I guess?
The most common issues I'm seeing for people are, most people come to me these days, it seems like for weight loss issues, right? So people that are really struggling with, they know that they've struggled with their weight their entire lives, have tried to lose, have been yo-yo dieters, and hear, that the impact of a whole food plant-based diet can be very positive and really take away that whole idea of dieting and really move to a healthy lifestyle. So I suspect that, you kind of get what you ask for. So my profile on my marketing material, I really focused on my personal history, which was one of yo-yo dieting and And not and my health wasn't, critical. I think as my bio kind of talks about, I just started, gaining weight, and despite being a vegetarian, I was really a pescatarian, so eating fish and dairy. And despite that, I kept putting weight on, and the cholesterol was out of control, and blood pressure was going up. And then with the loss of my parents and an aunt and uncle, and then all my friends were all pushing about the same age. I just turned 60 in December. It was kind of time a few, about 4 years ago now to kind of put the brakes on. So I guess the vast majority of people, and it's really kind of in my wheelhouse, come to me based on not only my professional experience and my story of resonating on how we just continue to see lots and lots of sick people, and people just don't get better. And through the healthcare systems, they get their symptoms treated. I think between that and then my own personal story of yo-yo dieting, that's really kind of been the focus. It's really kind of cool that has been the focus, and that I'm able to really give people an exit strategy, if you will, out of that that up and down yo-yo restrictive dieting. Yeah.
How about you, Victor?
I think for me, particularly when I was in the classroom, parents really struggled with setting meals in for their children. So the commercialization of children's foods, and how parents feel like they have to buy into the yogurts with the Disney characters, and the cheese sticks, and that dairy is the most important thing to put in your child's body, it's been a real challenge. And so, we're not, a lot of schools don't allow peanut butter, so that's a non-option. So parents really struggle with this, with food. And the schools that I worked in, the parents had to send in the lunch. So I could actively help them think about that and have them try things with their children, a more plant-based diet, try things, try making a salad, and putting different things in it, and seeds, and, things that are fun. Have you make your child's lunch with them, maybe the night before. So it's a fun activity, so they'll be more into it. If they're making the food, then they'll be more into that kind of food, instead of just being surprised when they open their lunch and getting frustrated. So that was sort of my big instigator. And I would model eating as well. Like, I would, even if I wanted to bring maybe something that wasn't that great for me, I would never eat that in front of children. I was always modeling great food for them. I mean, when I wasn't vegan or vegetarian, I really wanted to sort of be that person, because they're looking at me and what I'm eating. And I always wanted to be that person of a model for them. So that was really, I always was thinking about that all the time. And I watched sad moments where children would come in with healthier lunches and see other kids with the commercialized yogurts and things, and then change. I knew this child that her parents grew up in China, and they would make her these beautiful lunches for her that were plant-based, basically. And she would come in and she'd eat them, but then she'd see everybody else was not eating that food and was getting frustrated. So she was asking for the things she was seeing. And then her lunch slowly turned into more of an American diet, which I was like, no.
Yeah.
So assimilation, is really hard. It's really, really hard. And I actually went to her house. We had home visits at this particular school, and they fed me when I came. And I made a big point of that this food is delicious. And I remember saying to her, like, oh, why is your lunch changing? Because you have these lunches that are great, and your grandmother makes them, and they're delicious. And she said, oh, well, I want to have what they have, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a real challenge in the classroom, it's a real battle with sort of how things are set up, and how parents feel like they have to feed their children certain foods because they're marketed to children.
Yeah.
When we were getting prepared and kind of talking with Meryl a month or so ago about the show, you had said something relative to the fact that you were talking about food and food with your students before, way before your plant-based journey and your diet, and it was part of your curriculum too, right?
Yeah, we do some cooking, and we also I wanted kids to know that there was more than just what they were having in their lunch. So good choices, healthy choices, that some people didn't eat meat. Some people in certain parts of the country chose either for religious reasons, ate this way. I wanted them just to kind of know that there was more to food than just what they were having. And we studied Cesar Chavez, and Cesar Chavez really was a advocate for farmers. And so with that, children also got to look at their own, like, where their food came from, right? And the workers that are involved with their food and the effort to get food to them and the journey. And maybe we grew our own food. We decided to grow some food and start a small garden in our backyard and then eat that food at snack and lunch and sort of see how much work and how hard it was just to grow carrots and lettuce and potatoes. And it was fun, but it was a lot of work. And so, and some of the crops didn't make it and some did make it, and why. And so we collected data that way with young children and sort of just, really sort of figuring out food. And we also went after a fast food restaurant who was not treating their farmers well. And so the tomato farmers in particular at the Wendy's actually was struggling with that. And they were the only fast food restaurant in the United States that was not getting their produce from a unionized farm workers. So we actually wrote them a letter. We organized a protest in our school saying, and we told parents, and we were at a university, so we went around the university and talked to the professors, and we went into classes and really just stood up against Wendy's and said, don't eat there. We're boycotting Wendy's. So that was sort of like this big deal around food. And so then we didn't really go into like that Wendy's food isn't great. We mostly focused on just that the workers need to be treated fairly, particularly the farmers. And with that, and actually the law did change within 3 years. We might have had something to do with it. We wrote to Wendy's. A lot of the university students jumped on board and actually went to Wendy's that following weekend after we'd done our little protest. So we felt really strong and powerful as young people. And it really made kids think about food and that where their food came from and the workers, and that they need to be treated well.
Yeah. So we're going to go back a little bit just on that point. So how did you both eat when you were growing up? Tell us a little bit about your food journey as a person.
I was a chubby little kid. That was kind of the classic, teased to no end because of my weight. I'm 11 and a half years younger than my brother, so it was kind of like two families. And as I was growing up, when I was about, think about it, like when I was about 7 years old, my brother was 18 and he was going to college already,
Right.
My mother was obese. My father, he just worked so darn hard. He was a mechanic, a fender and truck mechanic. And he just worked his tail off and was probably a little bit overweight at times, but not like my mother, who was obese. And thus she raised a chubby little boy. I don't know why I never was diagnosed, if that was even an issue then, with blood pressure or diabetes, childhood diabetes, because I think back about, the candies and the cookies and the cakes that I ate and, heavy laden with meat and potatoes and gravy and everything like that, why I was never diagnosed. I mean, and then about 13 years old, I think the hormones started kicking in and started thinking about the opposite sex. And I decided I really needed to lose weight. And, between 7th and 8th grade, I shot up. I think I shot up about 5 inches, and I was 5'11" and 170 pounds. And, this tall, thin guy. And it lasted through most of my early to later high school years. And then in college, I put the weight back on again, food, and it's interesting when you think about food in my generation. So, I was born in 1961. So you think about the late 60s, early 70s. My parents were born and raised, early 20th century, lived through the Depression. And for them to be able to provide meat and quality animal products to their children was really a win for them in their eyes, that they, my mother and my uncles and my father would talk about eating organ meats and that being a treat when they were living through the Depression, right. Like lungs and hearts and things like that. So for them to give me, fresh chicken and beef and pork and all that, that was like, wow, we're really doing something for our child. So, for a while I kind of blamed them in my own mind, but then you kind of look at the history and that's what they knew. And that's the way I was raised. So, you know, it's so I'm really fortunate that I didn't have any long-term chronic illnesses because of the way I was raised and the diets that I was raised on.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was one light bulb moment. It was slow and gradual over a long period of time. In fact, I sometimes get really angry and upset that, you hear all these, miracle stories of, I went on a whole food plant-based diet in 6 months, I lost 100 pounds. These
Yeah.
people aren't like that. I mean, they sell magazines and get people's attraction on social media and emails, and they're great poster child type scenarios, but most people don't lose weight like that. They just don't. And then, so as much as I understand the value of those, stories of I lost 100 pounds in 6 months on a whole food plant-based diet, look how healthy I am. As much as they motivate people, it can also really frustrate people that I'm not like that. And I gotta believe most people aren't like that. At least the people that I'm coaching aren't like that. And they're just as honest and just as sincere and just as motivated as the people that lost 100 pounds in 6 months. So.
Right. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
How about you, Victor?
Well, I'm really just 9 months into this really serious lifestyle change. And thanks to Mark, I took a class with him back last May, and it really got me focused and excited. And I've been sort of looking at what to do with my body and my eating for, I'd say, for about 2 years, but always was too busy and couldn't figure it out. And, it just felt like another thing. And I have a tree nut allergy, so it looked like plant-based diet was dangerous to even consider because, if I go out to eat and get a plant, I'm going to die. And so I had all these excuses in my brain, like why I can't do it. And it really wasn't until COVID-19 I quit my job, and now I'm home and I'm not as active. I've really got to think of something new because I was this super active person and still was gaining weight. And so I needed to figure something out. So this just felt like something that I could figure out. And taking the class with Mark, my friend Rob said, I'm taking this class. And I was more like thinking of supporting Rob and doing this with Rob, not for myself. It's really interesting how I entered this. And then I ended up just taking it on and slowly, and as Mark will tell you, the Victor method, I eliminated, breakfast first, I went vegan, and then lunch another week, and then dinner, and then I just never went back. And my whole life has changed, and the stuff that I struggled with in the 90s around this is gone. I'm doing this for me now, and it's like it's not about losing weight. It's about a lifestyle change. It's about feeling better. It's about living longer. It's about just taking care of myself and modeling that for not only just my family but everyone around me and my friends. So I've had lots of really great conversations now with my friends who are still meat eaters who think this is a really stupid idea, and just having that dialogue, and they're seeing how my skin has changed and how much energy I have now, and how just my body is changing. I have lost weight, not 100 pounds, but I've lost some weight, and it's just I sleep better, I digest better, all these things that I didn't think were going to happen. I smell less. It's just all these things. It's just it's interesting.
Well, I can never smell you, so
So all these things I didn't expect are just incredible, and food tastes better. That was the big shift. That spinach tastes better, carrots taste, things that I've been eating my whole life now actually taste differently.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great. So you mentioned modeling this for your family and your people around you. How do they feel about it?
I think
have they gone along with you on this change?
Some have. Some are thinking differently about how they eat. Some are just like, oh, that's great for you.
Right. Have at it.
Yeah, they back me and they support me. Some people, they go, well, you can't eat any of this food. They get very confused. They go, well, actually, I can eat that and that and that. And it's actually quite easy for me. I've noticed people get really especially when my family get really stuck and confused about it. And they're like, well, you're eating that vegan diet. Like it's this alien diet. It's like, it's the same food you're eating. I'm just choosing not to eat animal products. Like, I mean, it's
Right.
like, it's not that weird, really. It's not. So just sort of like modeling that it's just, and then when they watch me eat, like my dad, for instance, right, who's this, working class guy, like he's just like, whoa, like, oh, I see how you eat. Oh, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. And I pulled off even a vegan Thanksgiving for my family this year. And people every day thought it was delicious. So nobody complained and it was great. And I don't think people were being polite. They actually liked it. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think slowly I'm, convincing people to think about this more and differently. And I've had friends say, oh, I decided just to not eat meat this week, right? And see how it was. And they said it was actually okay. Like, so I had a friend tell me that I was you this week, like, or that I was you on Tuesdays. Like, like they will say
Your
that.
method, one day a week.
That's all right.
It's good.
Right.
So it's a good start, right?
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Tell us in the audience a little bit about what you see as, and Mark, you too, both you, I think you have unique perspectives. What do you see as like how kids of a certain age view their connection to how they eat, planetary health?
Mhm.
They may be aware of wildfires that are occurring all over the planet. They may be aware of animal rights and industrial animal farming and things like that. Do you have any of that stuff coming up in your conversations with kids?
I think for me, like, I think they're kind of noticing the trends, right? And that there's a buzzword, especially my child is noticing that everyone's having plant-based food and some of it's fake. Some of it's not real, right? So they're even noticing that there's real plant-based and then there's the commercial plant-based, right? And the one that's sort of trickery. So that's what I find that children that are growing up now notice that they're very much more specific, look at the word, very suspicious of the government and suspicious of things, especially having the prior president that we had. My child grew up with, that's the only president she knows, really, because she was too young really to know Barack Obama being in the office.
Right.
So she's very, she's like, well, they're saying this, but they're really meaning this.
Mm.
And so I think children are really noticing that they have to read all the fine print and they have to do all the research, and they have access to the internet. They have access to social media. And I think differently than we had, right? And so they know that what is said may not always be true, and what is said might be, might not all have the facts.
Because at the end of the day, it's the parents that are going to make the decision with the children. I mean, Victor, like you were saying, giving your child choices versus running through the drive-through every evening. I mean, there's a local drive-through here. It's they're known kind of for their sauce. I mean, it's typical Chicago stuff, beef and sausages and stuff. I mean, any time of the day or night when they're open, the line of cars is just enormous, and it scares me that and it's every socioeconomic group that's in line there. You see the cars that are just barely running to the BMWs and the Mercedes in line.
Yeah.
And it just scares me to think that the damage that those simple little choices are making for their children and how it influences. And Victor, I think you and I have talked about this offline, the influences of the food on everyday school life too. And there's some research out there now that's really showing that the influence and the impact of processed foods on other type of learning disabilities and attention deficit and autism. I mean, there's just I don't know if we've even scratched the surface of that.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, then you take that into adulthood and how the impatience and the irritation and the single-mindedness people have, the inability to discern information and what's right and wrong, how the diet impacts that, and then the political climate, it's just holy smokes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, a lot of interplay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a big, kind of a big deal. Kind
Yeah,
of
right.
a big subject,
Yeah.
It takes something to just to sit and think about that for any length of time at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does.
So it's
Yeah, and while it can get overwhelming pretty quickly, and people can maybe feel like, oh, why even bother? I don't know that it's going to make a difference, or I can't make a difference. I'm only one person. Is there any bright spots or like hope that you guys see for the future? Anything in particular?
Well, I mean, I got really excited about New York Public Schools doing a plant-based diet on Fridays. Like, it's a step in the right direction, even if it's the food's not great, and even if they're making really bad choices. I think it's just that they're trying something that's completely off the record. I'm really excited about, and I was like, I was very excited to tell my child this. I was like, maybe we'll have it here in Boston. Maybe this will be a trend. Maybe this will start something, start a conversation about food in schools. And I know that your organization has a lot to do with this and trying to change things where you are. So I was thrilled. That made me really hopeful that people are noticing that something needs to be done. Something's wrong here, and I feel like this has been a conversation that's been ongoing for a long time about kids' lunches, and prison lunches are the same thing. Like,
yeah,
and
right.
so we need to change that. So that made me feel hopeful
Yeah.
that New York was trying something.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hope it catches on and goes nationwide.
Right. And by all means, Victor, if you want to like try to launch something in the Boston area, we'll try to hook you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to try.
Whatever we can do to make that happen. How about you, Mark? What do you see that's a bright spot?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because at the end of the day, we're going to build things on the bright spots, and we're going to build things on a positive foundation. So I think, to Victor, to your point, the plant-based Fridays in the schools, and then you might have also seen that New York City is expanding their plant-based lifestyle medicine, the clinics, through 6 sites in New York City. So the bright spot is we've got a gentleman like Eric Adams speaking from personal experience at the policy level, right? He's affecting policy of our largest city in the United States. So I think that's the bright spot, that we've got leaders in that type of position that aren't afraid to say, this is what's going to save our butts. It's not all those pills and all that medicine, but what's going to save our butts is, first of all, getting ourselves healthy, and getting off this cycle of chronic illness and more pills and more hospitalization, and eating healthy, eating a plant-based diet is what's going to get us healthy. I think that is really, very hopeful to me. I think the explosion of, even though there is a lot of junk vegan food, but that at least, that's a thing now,
Yeah.
Right.
and that, and that people are at least, talking about it, I think is really, really positive. And it's those little changes, and maybe this is all part of the bigger picture that that I kind of mentioned before, and that there's a revolution, maybe thinking and looking at life that we're going through right now, that the social justice and change could come through society in a lot of different ways, and so it's just one of the things that keeps me going too is staying connected with the people in this conversation. That's really, really important. I tell my students that too. You got to stay connected with people that are thinking and believe in the same things you do, and following that lifestyle, because that's where you're going to get the energy. You're not going to get the energy from the negativity,
Right. Or from arguing about it, right?
or arguing about it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Those are the things that that really keep me positive.
Right. So if there was one thing you could tell our audience that they could do right now, and it could be from any facet of your life. One thing they could do, if it's from social justice or anti-racism or good eating, healthy living, what would you recommend people to do?
I guess for me, it would just be um, listen, listen to the data, um, understand the science behind the data too. And that, um, it's science evolves and changes, and we change our opinions about the effects of diet and medicine, food, and the environment because of science, because of the fact that we look at the data and the facts the facts kind of bear out different approaches to solving those problems. I mean, I think this is one of the biggest misunderstandings in the whole pandemic. You hear a lot of argument about, well, CDC can't make up their mind, and this doctor can't. Well, we keep evolving and learning things, about this novel virus, for example. That's science, and I think the same thing with whole food plant-based diets. I mean, you look at stuff back in the 70s about veganism, and it was, well, you have to make sure you mix the right amino acid, of beans and and now what we know is that, if you eat beans, legumes, vegetables, fruits, and grains, you eat them as close to the source as you can, the natural source, you're going to get every vitamin and protein and carbohydrate that you need. So I say just, listen, examine, and don't be afraid to change your opinion based on the data and based on what you learn in your life.
Yeah.
Great. Victor?
I think I would add to that, even listen, not just listen to your body, and listen to, don't be afraid to try something new. Um, I think our biggest challenge as being human is fear. And I think we fear change. And this is what I always talk to my children about. Like, children are very confused, especially young children, when I talk about, racism, and when I talk about people not discriminating against others because of the color of their skin, and, who they are or where they live, or if they're poor or whatever it is. And I said, people are really afraid of change or difference. And if we can sort of just accept that changes can be okay, and change can be uncomfortable, but the outcome can be great. And I feel like when I decided to go on this plant-based diet, I decided to make a big change. And it was scary, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that because there was this virus, that my family needed something different now. And I knew I needed something different now, because I knew eventually we probably would get this virus, and I wanted to be able to live through it. And so a plant-based diet was a way to live through this. And I feel like, now that it has entered our home, I feel like we're ready. And, it's not perfect, and we're not in the perfect stance for it, but at least we've delayed it. And now I feel like that making this choice to have a plant-based diet and live the life that we're living has sustained our life, and has made things better, and things land differently, health-wise, decision-wise, mentally, everything. So I feel like that's what, just sort of, don't be afraid of change, and
Yeah.
and listen to your body.
So if our viewers or our audience want to learn more about you guys, what you guys are working on, or just contact you, where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find me at the website. It's let'seatgreat.com, or at Let's Eat Great Food, or you can email me at mark@let'seatgreat.com. I'm happy to help and answer any questions. And part of my work is doing work with folks that are trying to transition to a whole food plant-based diet. My other part of my work is I do some vegan travel trips as well. You can check out those trips at vegjohnsonjourney.com. It's Veg Johnson Journey. So love to see you if you can, come on a tour with us, where I do all the cooking and you do all the eating. How's that for you?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, wait, you said Veg, Jaunts, and Journeys?
Right.
Okay, .com.
.com. Right.
Okay, got it.
I highly recommend it. Mark makes things very easy and fun, and he's so likable when he's cooking, and you feel like you could do it. Like it feels very easy and doable.
Mm,
Cool.
nice.
Thank you for
Even if you
that.
have no idea how to cook or anything about vegan lifestyle, like Mark makes it easy. So
Great.
Nice. That's a good gift.
Thank you.
Victor, how would we find you?
me, I'm at Victor Bradley. I think VictorBradleyJr.com is my website, and that's probably the best way to see what I do. I do like three things really. I go into schools and I do trainings for them, anti-race, anti-bias trainings to transform either districts or classrooms. Elementary, I have done junior highs and high school, but primarily my work is in early childhood and working with young children and teachers and educators around this, pretty much all over the world. Because I do everything online, I work with schools in Japan, on the West Coast, also in the Midwest, and in the Boston and tri-state area where I live. So it's been great. I've met so many people in the past year and a half, and I also do some online work with children, doing work with them on learning about change makers and social justice work. And that is a lot of fun because we don't just we'll learn about somebody and read a story, but we'll also dance and have fun and do all kinds of fun things as well, and also work on our bodies around meditation and mindfulness. So we get sort of find that quiet space. I found that I had to add that in because children were inside for such a long time and weren't able to sort of be in touch with their bodies. So I added that as well, which has been really great.
Cool.
But yeah, I also do parent groups as well and parent coaching around this work. So how do they talk to young children about anti-bias, anti-racist work? So
Nice.
thank you.
Really good.
Yeah, we'll make sure all of those, the websites and everything go in our show notes so people can
Thank
get in
you
touch.
so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for your time and your energy and your wisdom
Yes.
and everything you're doing in the world. Yeah, you're making the world a better place all the time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity. This has been great.
Yeah,
Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
our pleasure.
Yes.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
6 Million Seeds is made possible by the generosity of Bruno Chiropractic, Acme Construction Metals, EXP Realty, and Deck It Out Builders. Thanks, guys, for all your support.